Learners at home, this is your favorite Learn at Home program once again. I remain Ogushola Samson Olumiwa, taking you social studies. In the lessons in the past, we have discussed social problems, and diverse social problems have been mentioned. We have talked about poverty as a social problem. We have talked about child abuse. We have talked about rape and many more. This afternoon, we want to pick one of them, which is child abuse. Okay. We want to discuss child abuse this afternoon. You are a child. To what extent have you been abused? How can we say you have been abused at a point? This day, in this lesson, you will be able to tell. What are the things we stand to achieve at the end of the lesson? Let's go through them one by one. At the end of this lesson, learners at home will be able to describe child abuse. You will be able to tell us what child abuse is. Enumerate forms of child abuse. Itemize the effects of child abuse at the end of the lesson. We should be able to list the factors that may promote child abuse in our society. Finally, we'll be able to mention the ways to prevent child abuse. Now, straight to the point. What is child abuse? It is physical and psychological maltreatment of a child. Maltreatment is the word. Child maltreatment, physically or psychologically, is child abuse. This has been a global discourse for a long period of time. Discussions have taken place in religious places, ethnical backgrounds, and in diverse ways. But the bottom line of the discussion is that everybody agrees that child abuse is not good in any way for our society. This child abuse occurs in diverse ways or forms, as the case may be. Yes, what are the forms of child abuse? It's a physical maltreatment, psychological maltreatment. So the first one we'll discuss this day is physical abuse of a child. If a child is abused physically, this can be done by the parents. There have been cases of parents that take alcohol and they will give to their child that is innocent to sip from the cup or the bottle of the alcohol. It may be by flogging or inflicting burns and other things on the child. We have heard of children that have been tied down with chains, both on the legs and the hands. So physical abuse of a child is intentional act of inflicting or causing injury or trauma for a child by ways of bodily contact. When a child has contact with the body and there is injury deliberately, then it is child abuse. Another form of child abuse is emotional maltreatment. Emotional feelings of the child is hurt, is endangered. It makes the child to cry uncontrollably. The child will sit down and get withdrawn because the emotion has been tampered with. What is emotional maltreatment of a child? It is subjecting or exposing a child to experiences that may result in anxiety. The child will be unnecessarily anxious to do even what he or she is not supposed to do. Depression will affect the child, and the child will have what we call painful feelings, emotional maltreatment, a form of child abuse. Yes, there's sexual abuse when a child is forcefully made to experience sexuality. It is unwanted sexual activity with perpetrators using force, coercion, threat that if you tell anybody I'm going to kill you, deceit, if you do this for me, I'm going to give you this. Or advantage, taking advantage over such a child. Because the child is so innocent, doesn't know anything, doesn't know how to complain, then the abuser takes advantage of the child and abuses the child sexually. There's neglect as another child abuse form. Neglect in the sense that the child may be given to another child to take care of. The parents are not in, leaving the child with a child. Take care of this child for me. A child that is to be taken care of is taking care of another child. Neglect. Or leaving the children to fend for themselves what they will eat, drink, or where they will live. So what is neglect as a form of child abuse? It is deficit in meeting a child's basic needs. What are these basic needs? The basic needs of life, of clothing, of feeding, and shelter. A child is left to fend for his or her own health care, for his or her own housing, for his or her own clothing. That is neglect, allowing the child to do what is supposed to be done by the society or the parents. Commercial exploitation, another form of child abuse. This occurs when we engage children in economic activities or labor for someone else's gain, like child labor, like child hawking, and child begging. Presenting a child to go and beg so that I, as an adult, will have economic gain is a form of commercial exploitation on that child. It's a form of child abuse. Yeah. We have been able to enumerate some forms of child abuse. What are the factors that promote child abuse in our society, especially in Nigeria? Family stress. Family stress. That is what the family is passing through. The family may be poor. Maybe the parents have divorced each other. There may be sickness. Maybe the parents are sick. They are incapable. Or they are disabled. They can't fend for the family. And lack of parental skills before engaging in parenthood can be a form of family stress that can promote child abuse. Another factor that can promote child abuse is when parents themselves were sometimes abused. They were abused and there is no complaint from any quarters. They have taken it to be part of life. When they have their own children, they feel that is how life should go. Therefore, they themselves will abuse their own children. Yes, drug abuse can make someone to abuse a child. When a person has taken drugs, especially drugs that intoxicate, when intoxication takes place, we say the person is misbehaving. Out of the misbehavior, child abuse will take place. We may sexually abuse the child, coerce the child into doing one or two other things that are not supposed to be done by the child. Drug abuse can be a factor. Now, transfer of aggression. Because your mother or my wife didn't do well for me, you, these children, you are in trouble today. Transfer of aggression can make a child to be abused by the parents. So also teachers can abuse a child because of transfer of aggression. Adults in the community can abuse a child because of transfer of aggression. They are angry about what someone else has done for them. They don't know how to hear their grievances. But what they think they can only do is to vent it on anyone, their anger on anyone that comes their way. And if any child comes their way, the child stands the risk of being abused as a child. Now, what are the effects of child abuse on a child? If a child is abused, what are the resultant effects? The child may have psychiatric problems. If depression has been for long, thinking of the child may be affected. The mentality of the child may be affected, and the child will find it difficult coordinating. Violence may occur because the child has been abused. He becomes violent, that anyone that comes my way, whether it's coming to abuse me or not, I'm going to resist. Withdrawal can take place, which means the child will naturally withdraw like a snail into his or her shell per time. Instead of being courageous, instead of being with good self-esteem, the self-esteem will be very low, and the child will always withdraw from others because he will see every other person as a potential abuser, especially where adults are. I just talked about lowering of self-esteem, timidity and lack of confidence. The child will lack confidence. Courage will not be there. When he's asked to talk in the class, the child will be timid because of the experience he or she had earlier. Aggressiveness, unnecessary anger. The child will flare up with little or no touch. Aggressiveness. He will grow up to be an abuser, just like I said earlier on, that parents that were one time abused could grow up to be abusers. The child too can grow up to be an abuser parent, abuser teacher, abuser friend, abuser neighbor. Child abuse can make a child to be a mother. That is child motherhood. And the other way around, it can also be child fatherhood. Remember, child abuse is not restricted to whether you are a boy or a girl. Even sexual abuse can take place against girls, likewise boys. Now, what can we do in Nigeria to prevent child abuse? There are some suggested ways of preventing child abuse here. Number one, parenting skills training should be given to would-be parents. Parents that are giving birth very soon should be given training on how not to abuse a child, how to take care of their children in the acceptable way. Children should not stay in lonely places. Yes, children that play in lonely places stand the risk of being abused by an abuser, especially sexual abuses. Parents should be aware of where their words are per time. Anytime a child goes anywhere, the parents should be aware of where the child is at all times. So when the parent is asked, he should be able to tell, my child is in point A or point B. There should be advocacy and enlightenment against child abuse in the society. We should preach against it in our mosques, in our churches, even in the shrines, our religious places. We should talk against child abuse. Children should not be left unattended to. At all times, a child should not be left alone without someone taking care of the child. Children should report strange movements to their parents and teachers, adults, and many more. Now, we have been able to talk about child abuse. We talk about the meaning, forms, factors responsible, and effects of child abuse. In one word, when can we say a child has been abused? It is when his emotion or his physical appearance has been affected by another man deliberately. Can you enumerate forms of child abuse? We talked about physical abuse, sexual abuse, and so on and so forth. These are forms of child abuse. What are the factors responsible for child abuse? These factors may be responsible for child abuse, but they do not make it good for child abuse to happen in the society, to occur in the society. We mentioned family stress, which may be poverty, which may be divorce, and so on. We talked about drug abuse and many more that can be responsible for child abuse as factors. Itemize the effects of child abuse on a child. What are the effects of abuse on a child? The child will be withdrawing unnecessarily. The child may become an abuser. The child will lose confidence. He will have lack of self-esteem, and so on and so forth. I want to emphasize this. We have all agreed that child abuse is not good. How do we prevent it? How do we prevent child abuse? Parents have roles to play. Children on their own have their own roles to play. What are these roles? Parents should not leave their children unattended to part-time. Children should not play in lonely places or stay in lonely places where there are no people. They should make sure that their parents are aware of wherever they are part-time and so on. Look at this. Think about it and do something about it. That will be what you will do at home. Imagine a society without child abuse and discuss it. You are in JS1, 2, or 3. Imagine a society that doesn't have child abuse and write what you think such a society will be down. And secondly, after you have itemized that, you have written all that down, then you tell me the ways in which we can reduce or eradicate child abuse in our society. The ways in which we can reduce or eradicate child abuse in the society so that we may have a society that doesn't have child abuse. Rape, domestic violence, child abuse are social problems, but our emphasis today has been child abuse. I want to thank you for listening and implore you to meet you next time on same station. I remain Ogunshola Santin Olumiwa, your social studies teacher. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.